Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is May 27, 2025. Want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Also want to thank Jay Paulson for his poetry series at the Book Jewel. That's where I met today's guest, Stephen Macomb Miller. Steve, where in the heck you calling in from?
I'm actually in Slab City, California, which is at Nyland, town of Nyland on the Salton Sea.
How cool is that? The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Uh, well, I think to learn how to be content and follow your natural curiosity. As I've gotten older and dealt with health problems, I think more about why learn anything else at my age when I could die at any time. And I thought, because I think there's a collective consciousness that benefits if we learn right up to the time we die, kind of like the 100th monkey theory, that if you know that it's like a group of monkeys on one island learns a skill and suddenly another island far away, they know the same skill. So I think there's sort of a collective consciousness that benefits from us learning right up to the moment we die. So I think learning and, you know, I think just being active and enjoying your life.
Love it. Really well put. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
I'm a pretty avid reader. Probably a little too chronic about it because I buy books and I start books and then I have like 5 books I'm reading at once. And I also get a few periodicals. So I shy away from any of the regular media outlets. It's just, it's clear that it's filtered in mostly one big advertisement.
Two quick tangent questions.
Yeah.
What periodicals do you appreciate?
I like The Nation. I read Mother Jones. I love The New Yorker, but I'm not currently subscribed because it's the one I most chronically get behind on. And I'm still reading some stuff from the 90s from my pile.
Tell me about it. Okay, now did you become a reader, one, because your parents told you to? Two, they did it as an example, or three, on your own?
I'd probably start with two. I think the biggest impact was that we never had a television until I think I was 12 or 13. So there was two options. One was read and the other was go out in the woods and play. And I did a little of both, but I got read to a lot as well. I had an aunt that was a fantastic story reader. She would, personify every character. The giraffe and the worm would have a different voice. And so I think my imagination, my vocabulary, my love of language I think that all stemmed from that. And I still love the way my brain plays with language and the way, I love language. It fascinates me, going back to music lyrics and, just storytelling in general.
What city was that you were raised in?
I grew up in a suburb of New Haven. My dad had gone to Yale and then stayed behind and joined a firm for a number of years and then ended up working for Yale. So I was sort of a faculty brat.
Yeah. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Well, there's a context question. I think it depends on the individual. I think some people want to be able to brag. They want to be able to recount stuff. I, for one, was abysmal at the game Trivial Pursuit because I have a natural aversion to trivia. I just don't store it. And unfortunately, for all the information I might take in, I can read a really great article in the New Yorker, and the next day I couldn't tell someone what it was about. I'm not good at regurgitating, So, what was the question again?
No, that was it was an amazing answer. You're concise and articulate because I'm after this first thought, best thought, but I know it's deeper. The question was, why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Well, I think some people do it because they want to earn a lot of money, so they
Yeah.
get degrees stuff, and there's book learning, and there's the kind of learning I did, which was, I was slated to go to Yale and I refused. I just,
Yeah.
I was a legacy baby, and my father, my grandfather, great grandfather, uncle, cousins, they all were Yale men, and I just refused. But I feel like by osmosis, growing up in that environment, I internalized a lot, and I mentioned vocabulary, a love of talking about ideas,
Yeah.
discussing ideas, and
Yeah.
there's nothing fascinates me more than people communicating about styles of communication
That is
and the way.
so
Yeah,
totally what this series is about. That's really good because it's both content and form, but we don't really realize it's form. So then the follow-up, Steve, is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
oh, I mean, it's like saying who has natural curiosity and who doesn't and why.
Yeah.
And I think when kids are raised in extreme poverty, they're in survival mode. They don't have the
Yeah.
luxury of going to the library, say, or being fascinated by nature. They're in survival mode. So I do think that's very much a environmental thing. I basically say when my friends were drawing army men and little cartoons, I was drawing floor plans because my dad got the American Institute of Architect journal, and that's what I looked at. I looked at
Yeah.
New Yorker cartoons and AIA journal floor plans, so that's what I drew. So it's all content, And
That
my dad
is so
loved music. My dad loved he loved classical music. He loved show turn tunes, and I feel like I'm an honorary gay person because I love show tunes. I love musicals,
yeah.
So
Yeah, that is so you reminded me of I used to take comics. I think it was in grade school, late grade school, just before high school. And I would put them down on the desk in my classroom, and then me and my friend would redraw them. And like,
uh huh,
why? So like you're saying, why are these guys drawing army men? Why is someone drawing a floor plan? It's all about that. And it just lays out the form of this dialogue we're having is I'm for tangents, anecdotes, and stories. You don't have to, quote, answer the question. They're just prompts. And it's like me and you versus the wording on the question. So some of these early questions about philosophy are basically, is it more this or more that? Well, of course it's both, and it depends. But they're just it's for you to go off and talk. So this is really good. You get it. That's what I'm saying. Do thoughts
yeah.
create? Yeah. Do thoughts create emotions?
Oh, I guess my tangent on that would be, sometimes because I have physical work, I get massages from time to time, and I like someone who doesn't treat my body like pieces, like they do your back, then they do your legs, then they do your arms, and I'm like, I'm one thing, and I feel that way. Like, emotions cannot be. You could say what comes first, the chicken or the egg, or my feelings hurt, and then I feel it in my body, and then I'm angry and I want to retaliate. There's theories that's like, if you know what Rolfing is, it's like very deep tissue body work,
Yeah.
and the idea is to take the emotion that's locked up in your tense muscles and get it out, and it's
Yeah.
very emotional for people. Of course, it's also very painful physically, but
Yeah.
I just think it proves that our feelings are in our musculature, that the heart being the biggest muscle, and they say there's actually a brain in the heart, and I think that there's very superficial ways you can separate, mind, body, thought, but I think it's just a construct. Really, they're all connected.
Yeah.
I mean, I have ideas about my feelings, you know,
Yeah.
but that's different than having the feeling.
Yeah. Really good because they say we think with our gut sometimes. It's in our stomach, it's in our muscles, it's various places. But Steve, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I.
Huh. Well, for one, I feel like I think best when I'm alone. So if I'm being influenced by somebody, I think best when I'm not around someone trying to sell me something or influence me or convince me that they have a religion I should check out or some,
Yeah,
particular, discipline. So I would just say I think best when I'm alone and can have my
yeah.
own thoughts, not really get polluted by outside agendas.
It's good. McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. Can humans think without language?
Oh, that's an argument, I think, for the notion that thought comes forth from emotion, so that we were emotional people before we knew how to talk. And, one of my stories, I say, I learned the sound of traffic and the flow of daily life outside of my door before I knew my name. So there's experiences that become internalized that are core, like soundtracks of our youth, that they're laden with emotion of every type before we even knew our own name, or other than your mom. No.
That's
That's
amazing. The rap singer Queen Latifah, my friend told me she learned how to sing from car alarm. Now, most,
Jerry, your mic is suddenly staticky. Your
yeah,
microphone.
okay, how's that? Still
It's
staticky?
got, yeah. I
Well,
don't know if it's
it could be one of our servers is just how's that? Still?
about. Yeah, it's about the same. I mean,
Okay. Why don't we try? There's one thing to try that's easy. Just boot out, just leave and come back in. That's one way to do it. So we'll be right back with Steve. Hang in there, please. Okay, we're going to check a few troubleshooting. You're on. Okay. And Steve, how's that, Steve?
it's a little better. I don't know what.
Because the one thing I checked troubleshooting, they said, do you have the other tabs open? One thing is if you can cancel out your other tabs, or we could switch to
Uh,
Firefox.
um, I don't.
Okay, hang in there. We'll see what happens. Okay. We'll hope for the best. Hang in there. I met Steve reading his poetry at Jay Paulson's poetry events at the Book Jewel. Happens every other month. Check it out. Steve came and performed at our Bob Dylan event. Played about 3 songs. Really excellent performance. Bob Dylan on his turning 84 years old this year. Okay, and here we go. We're going to try this.
Oh,
How's that, Steve?
it's about 50% better. I can understand a sentence. I'm afraid it may be because my tablet's hot. I'm trying to cool it down.
Yeah.
It's hot out here. When
Yeah.
that happens, it'll just start deciding it's too hot. But I got you now.
Okay, I just heard everything you just said pretty good. So let's carry on and we'll see if it doesn't work,
Okay.
we can redo it another time. But it was amazing because you said, you could have emotions and you could hear the sound of traffic before you knew how to speak. You're hearing all this stuff. And then I said that Queen Latifah said she learned how to sing from hearing car alarms. Most people learn how to sing from school or the church and that environmental thing. So that was really important to me in asking, can humans think without language?
Can I make another point?
Please.
So I spent a bunch of years in Joshua Tree studying with a Buddhist teacher there, and she would do silent meditation retreats where we'd go up there, and she'd do it for a month, but I'd go for a week or 10 days. And you're with these people and no one talks. And it just astounded me how someone I didn't know, within a day or two, I could feel like we didn't like each other, and then we were sort of having a tiff, and then we somehow made up, and a few days later we were friends, and I thought, we never spoke a word. We just went through all this stuff emotionally, and it was all body language and just attitude. And I realized then that language is often an inhibitor to communicating.
A really good point. My friend told me about those retreats, and he said everybody would freak out. They're so addicted to language and speaking language. So just to be clear, you couldn't write notes, or could you write literal notes?
In off hours, because a lot of it was in a regimented day. So you went and you did your sitting, then you did a chore, then you did your lunch. It was all. But like after hours, when you were off in the trailer or the bunkhouse, people would chat a little, where you're from, whatnot. But I think to relieve that need to exercise those muscles. But for chronic talkers, it's profound. Because they don't know what to do, and then they start to learn. Wow, we communicate so much before we open our mouth. And it's so much. There's a favorite Calvin and Hobbes cartoon I have. I'll send you, but it's basically the last panel says Hobbes is saying it appears that language can be a complete inhibitor to communication.
Yeah, McLuhan has a great line too. I repeat all the time. Words are the most addicting and universal drug. And just to live for a week without really using verbal words, I can't imagine. I really wish I could do that. When my friend told me about it, I always thought, wow, I should try that. Because fasting is how you learn how something's shaping you. So Chomsky says language is not just words, it's culture, tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Steve, what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
I use Google Translate.
That is great. But let's say,
go ahead. I was going to say I'm sort of spoiled because I spent many years in the therapeutic community, not living in the community, but involved with the same people over the years. And I got spoiled because people would just say what they were thinking or feeling, and if there was any animosity or anything, it would just come out, and you'd get it over with. And then you get in the general population, and people aren't really skilled at that. They're really good. Like growing up in my family, we were not, you know, we were the masters of the cold shoulder. Like guess how I'm feeling. He's like, guess what I'm angry about today. He's like, I don't want to guess, but I'm good at it. And I had a lot of
Wow.
friends. They were Italian, and the Italian guys, they would just blow up and they'd be yelling and screaming. They'd sit down to dinner and be like, could you pass the butter? And I couldn't believe that. If we were yelling in my family, that was 2 weeks of not talking to somebody. So I
Wow.
envied that degree of brash, open communication. And like I said, therapy taught me again how to just get spontaneous. But you learn, and I'd say 30 years of therapy taught me that most of the time the smartest thing to say is nothing at all. You just keep your
Wow.
mouth shut.
That is so heavy because Bleecker Bob's this guy who sold records to rock stars in New York City. He has this great
I know.
line.
Yeah, yeah,
You know Bleecker Bob. He said,
yeah.
I'm not an asshole. I'm from New York.
Ah,
And it was a great line because, he really wasn't an asshole, but he would come off the way he talked, you know.
yeah. Well, you learn to translate. Grew up in Connecticut. My grandparents lived in Manhattan, so I feel like I'm part New Yorker, and that
Yeah.
ability to act as if someone's annoying you when you actually like them.
Yeah.
They say in New York, if someone cusses you out, it's because they like you. The people that don't like you won't talk to you. You know.
Yeah. But you're growing up with your mom and your dad and how many siblings? Any?
Yeah, two brothers, two sisters. So there was
Wow.
five of us.
5.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay, so your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking or more feeling beings?
Oh, I'd say most people are ruled by their emotions without even knowing it. They're just
Yeah.
led around by the nose by, you know, whether it's trauma, history, I mean, I look at somebody, say, who is scared of a chihuahua because they got bit by a German Shepherd when they were 4.
Yeah.
And you go, it's illogical, but I understand. And I'm not
Yeah.
going to ever shame them for being afraid of a teeny little dog that they could probably drop kick to the road. But it's those are innate things that we have to deal with, what I call our walking around feelings. Those are the things that we wake up with every day, and it's sort
Yeah.
of a package. you know and I think in the end, how we see the world, I was thinking about Democrat, Republican, red, blue, all these divisions that are black and white really are they're just emotional profiles. Like the
Yeah.
classic conservative Republican is just a repressed person that really didn't get nurtured by anyone, you know, and you could reduce it to a really an emotional profile. And, Democrats, more liberal minded, maybe they grew up in an upper middle class family, they had some Ivy League, they had resources. And so they're just not driven by hatred and things where they're, constantly at battle with life and the world. They're just calm people that got something. So they have something to give.
Really wise words, Steve. I appreciate that. I learned a lot from what you just said. These are 2 questions from Alan Turing in the 50s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
Oh, I think it's just a function of the nervous system.
Yeah.
They calculate the billions of neural connections in our brain, and they say it's more than there are stars in the heavens, which is hard to believe since our head's so small. But I think that is what fascinates me the most, not just neurochemistry and the way our minds work. And now that we can map all that with MRIs and stuff, and they're learning more and more. But so, how does that applied atomic, atomic physics, like nuclear physics. And the more they're learning about the atom and how much space is in the atom, and how much these things are just energy and lights, photons, or they're getting deeper and deeper. And you go, well, that means that the molecules that make up our gray matter, the actual atoms, are they're the same atoms, the same building blocks that make up our shit. So there's a new meaning for the term "shit for brains." It's the same freaking molecule. You know?
That is so that sounds like a good song or a poem. Shit for brains. But the second Turing question goes right into it. Can machines think?
Oh, I think they're attempting to mimic thinking, but and maybe now with these quantum computers, they're going to get closer and closer. But can a machine make an emotional decision? It can only mimic what it can calculate the probability of a human's decision might be.
Yeah.
Right? So I think they can program it to think like a human that has their feelings hurt, probably eventually, but it'll just fool us. It won't be an actual feeling. I recently had a robocall. It was some spam, and I was on the phone, and I deduced quite quickly that this was a robot speaking to me. But they had programmed the robot to say, So this
Yeah.
thing was reading a script, and it was saying, "Well, it looks like your account is about to be past due." And I'm like, "I'll be damned." They taught the computer to say
Yeah.
you know. So they're going to get better at fooling us. But
Yeah.
now when I look at graphics online, I see AI right away.
Yeah.
Eventually maybe we won't, but I see things and people are like, "What is this and this?" And I go, "It's AI. It's
Yeah.
clearly AI." And it's getting better, but I still see the difference. When there's a photograph or AI, you can see. Usually, it's in the skin tone. Because can they ever make a computer blush?
Yeah.
Right?
It's good. Good question. And when I get one of those calls, whether it's a robot or a human, this is what I go. Please take me off your list. I am a computer. Remove. So I just want them to hear. I want them to hear that word remove, and then I just hang up. So I know
Yeah.
sometimes that if it is a human, they're like, "What?" I was talking to a computer. They go, "That wasn't a computer." They could tell, but I used to use a computer voice. Now I don't even do it. I just say it in my straight voice. Do
That's
you
great.
more? Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Huh. Well, I think it's hard to separate the two. There's a meaning behind why something makes you happy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I I got diagnosed with cancer in 2012, and I got very preoccupied with reducing my stress. And everyone said, "It's stress, it's stress, you got to reduce." And I realized I got stressed about reducing my stress. And I thought, wait
Yes.
a minute, this is backwards. And then one day a light bulb went on, and I thought, wait, let's turn the pyramid upside down for a second. So what if I just do more of what makes me happy? Then I won't have time for the stress. I won't even be thinking about it because I'll be so busy being happy. So I started sailing and playing music and writing and traveling, and I just thought, well, this is my Make a Wish Foundation. No one else is going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I actually had a big festival. I had all my favorite bands come and play, and I spent a whole bunch of money on it, and I fed everyone for free. And I thought, this is this is the most meaning I can get while being as happy as possible. So I don't know that I can separate the two.
That's really
Meaningful.
good. That's really good. I wish I could have been at that concert. It sounds like fun, but the really thing, it's huge. What it is when we get to this age, it is how much your diagnosis is going to affect the sickness they're diagnosing you with. It's placebo, it's so many things. So you took the right path. Again, really inspired me, Steve, with those words. But the basic thing is I got the question from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he
Yeah.
says that happiness doesn't tend to last, that meaning tends to last. Does do you agree or disagree? Oh, we're breaking up again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's breaking up again. I'm trying to see what I can do here. Again, let's see if it
Yeah.
works.
What we could do is just reschedule when you're in a better situation. Yeah. Steve, we could reschedule when you're in a better situation because this is too valuable. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Oh, okay. Because what we could do is reschedule if it becomes too much. It's not that big of a deal because we this is too valuable. It's really great discussion and so
Yeah, I would go either way, but
you want
I do hear you now. And
yeah, you
if
know
it
what? I think Steve,
breaks up again, we'll just
yeah,
bail and reschedule.
yeah, I think rescheduling is a good idea because this is really
Does that
valuable to
work?
me. I think rescheduling would be better because you'll be closer and the internet will work
Are you
better
hearing
and
me?
then we won't have
Or
say it again. I would s- I would suggest we reschedule. Is that okay?
I'm sorry that we're having this issue, and I think it's probably. Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm back in town Wednesday nights. Any of that works.
Yeah, we'll figure out a good time,
Or,
but it's really been good and I really want to do it without the interruptions and it's no big
yeah,
deal.
I
We
understand. That's
yeah,
good. Yeah.
so
So
we'll talk soon. Thank you so much. That was really good and it set a good basis of where we can go.
I'll look forward to going further.
Okay.
All right.
Thank-
See ya.
Thanks a lot.